Before we get to the episode, if you're listening to us, you're likely interested in Israel with hopes of traveling here soon. Well, lucky for you, we've got the scoop on Massah Israel journey. With an amazing range of life-changing opportunities in Israel, Massah has so many different programs. They got gap years, academics, internships, volunteering, and even career programs. Massah really is the way to go. The pandemic didn't stop them either, promoting options to study remotely while living in Israel. There's no need to be fluent in Hebrew or break your bank account. They even supply partial funding, so you can make a positive impact on the world, and you can fuel your passion, and you can make your travel dreams a reality. So go to massahisrael.org, find out more. Check them out. I really, really recommend it. I was on a Massah program. Totally worth it. massahisrael.org. More than 5 years ago, in November 2016, before the world turned upside down, Doron Nir was our first guest ever on the podcast. Doron was and still is an entrepreneur, as well as one of Israel's podcasting pioneers. Ever since that legendary episode, Doron went on to found StreamElements, which is now one of the fastest growing, most promising new Israeli startups in the world. StreamElements is a platform for online streamers, mainly gamers, but not only, who want to enrich their streams with a variety of amazing tools and features. And if the last sentence is Chinese to you, don't worry, because we have Doron Nir with us today, straight from the new hipster capital of the world, Austin, Texas. Doron is the president and co-founder of StreamElements, his podcast Geekonomy, which he co-hosts with another StreamElements co-founder, Reem Sherman, is one of the most successful Hebrew podcasts to date. We're super, super happy to have Doron back on the podcast again today to discuss his company, his career, and much, much more. Thank you so much for joining us, Doron. How are you?
I'm blown away by this intro. I am blown away by this intro. I do not deserve half of the praise you gave me, but thank you so much, and I'm delighted to be on revisiting your podcast.
Thank you so much for coming again to the show. How have you been?
I'm great, man. It's a great time to be everything that I'm doing, which is an entrepreneur. Build a startup in the creator economy, have your own podcast, as you know. It's just a wonderful time in history to do all these things. So I'm in a very good place in my life.
It's like all the stars aligned. I mean, everything is now, right? Podcasting, gaming, all the things that you're involved in are kind of at the center right now, and it really is.
It's a revenge of the nerds kind of moment, you know, when everything that you were excluded and mocked for in your childhood suddenly becomes mainstream and the prominent culture. Yes, it's a wonderful time to be a nerd.
You can finally put the action figures like you have in the background on display proudly. And yes. That's exactly how it is. Nice. So you have relocated since we last spoke to Austin, Texas.
I did.
Before he was in California, I know everything. Before he was in California, though.
You were in California. So how is it in Austin? Tell us a little bit about that before we jump into StreamElements.
Austin is there's a podcaster that I really love called Mark Maron, who's both a very neurotic Jew and lives in California, and he refers to Austin as the hipster Alamo. And I think that sums it up beautifully. The Alamo means that this is Texas through and through. The people are Texans. The vibe is Texan. And we can talk about what that means. But it's also very, very hipster. Super inclusive, liberal. It's a blue area in an otherwise very red state. And it's also a really fun town. There's a vibrant music scene. There's a lot of culture, festivals in the area. It's a great place.
It's a great place for a startup, I imagine. Like it's a great environment to just kind of to develop kind of an awesome company culture, probably.
I think so. We don't have a lot of so it's interesting with StreamElements. Um, a lot of the creators that work with our platform actually live in the area. So that was not one of the reasons that I moved here. But as I was moving here, I discovered that a lot of top video creators in the gaming category live in Austin because there's a great combination of weather, low taxes, and just good infrastructure, high-speed internet, easy to access any place in America, etc. But me personally, I moved here regardless of the work on the startup because StreamElements is a fully remote company. So everybody works from wherever they are. It's been like that since we started, since COVID happened, and we essentially made the decision to go full remote, and we never went back. The only place the company has an office is in Tel Aviv. And even that is mostly for the people who live in Tel Aviv and have relatively small apartments and need an office rather than it being a mandatory thing to go to. So people only come if they have to.
And you don't feel like, I mean, I really want to get into the StreamElements story, but this is an interesting topic that I don't think we've yet discussed on the podcast. You guys don't feel like you've lost anything in going fully remote? Or do you just feel that the benefits are greater than the costs?
If I may redirect the question to you, what do you think might be lost when you go fully remote?
We did go fully remote for like a year.
People don't know who's we.
Well, in my company, I work at a startup as well, and we also went fully remote. And I felt now coming back, there's something in the energy of being in an office, passing by people, in the hall and having small conversations, and sometimes that sparks ideas. And I think it actually there's a lot of people talking about how maybe that's the next space of solutions, is how to ignite that in the remote space. But that's something that you don't get when, you only have the scheduled meetings and you only have these very, carved out moments.
Yes, I think going full remote for a company culture requires some discipline because you do lose the casual meetings, the lunches, the people bouncing in and off each other, both for ideas and just communication. So you have to be a lot more disciplined around communication, and that requires people to be slightly more grown up about it. And I think with StreamElements, because this is such a passion-driven company, it worked beautifully for us. People are aligned with the culture. They want and share often with each other. They do all sorts of extracurricular Zoom calls so that they can stay in touch, even though they are not bumping into each other in the halls. But it does require a certain amount of discipline. I fully agree with that. I don't feel that we lost anything because the benefits are so tremendous, and the amount of value that people get from a fully remote culture in terms of work-life balance, in terms of being at home, in some cases for their children, in some cases just the comfort of their home. I think it's so big that they gladly pay the price of adopting to this new mode of work. For us, this has been a game changer. The company skyrocketed since we went full remote. I don't necessarily think it was because of going full remote, but it definitely contributed to the productivity of the team.
So tell us a bit about StreamElements. Like let's get into that story. Where did it start? I think I remember you telling us a bit about it. I'm not sure. It was the idea. Does the idea go that far back? I feel like I remember you telling us something about it on the first episode.
So November 2016 is a time where me and Or Perry, my co-founder, was we were already going after investors and trying to raise money for the company. So the idea existed, and when I think about startups, and StreamElements is no different, the first thing is, what is the market thesis? Because the market is always bigger. I usually tell entrepreneurs that building a startup, especially early stage, is the equivalent of building a raft to cross the ocean. You have no chance of pulling it through unless there are really strong waves and winds that will carry you to your destination. And so the job of an early stage startup is really to catch those waves and that wind and use that momentum to get as far ahead as you could. The market thesis that StreamElements is based on is what is now become known as the creator economy, but it's essentially the democratization and dramatic bar lowering of creating and distributing digital content over the past years. That and we're talking about YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the podcasting ecosystem. In all these categories, there was a disruption of mainstream media. You don't need FM wavelengths anymore to broadcast audio. You can just do a podcast. You don't need a TV station or an antenna or permission from the government. You just need to record your video content and upload it to YouTube and distribute it across social media. All these examples essentially lead to the age of digital content creators that we are in right now, where a certain single person has the ability of building a media property worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And Joe Rogan is one example of that, but there are many, many others. People who essentially built on
PewDiePie and
Mr. Beast.
Yeah, all these guys, Mr. Beast, of course. All these individuals are one-person media conglomerates, and that could never have happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And that's, of course, thanks to the internet. And I was aware of that market dynamic for a long time through my passion to podcasting, through my passion to video content creation, gaming, where this is really one of the spearheads of digital content creation. And so back in 2016, I was looking at that, and I was looking for an opportunity to penetrate the media market with a cross-platform product or just a strategy. And then I met Or Perry. Or Perry at the time was building a set of content creation tools for live video content creators, specifically on Twitch. A chatbot that would help with content, with audience engagement, an overlay system that will help with motion graphics on the screen, something really, really fun and nice and helpful that he knew very well, because he was both a creator, streamer in his own right, but also helping streamers make more money, like an agent, like an Ari Gold for the Twitch era. And he identified the need, and so he collected a bunch of young, hungry software developers and started to build that cool shit. And when I saw that, I immediately identified that this resonates very strongly with the thesis that I was looking for. And I offered him, bless you, and I offered him to become partners and go raise a significant amount of money to build this into a massive media company. Fast forward 5 years, the company's already, valued in hundreds of millions of dollars. More than 1 million monthly active creators are using it. More than 70% of the top creators in gaming live video are using it. And revenue just keeps growing. It's a beautiful journey. I never could have imagined that this is going to happen so fast and so effectively. And we are one of the very, very fortunate companies that COVID actually boosted. So since Corona started, things really got crazy, both on
You and
the
Amazon.
revenues. Yeah.
Yes.
And probably several others. But the entire thesis of digital content creation and distribution and the creator economy, which is part of a broader market thesis that is referred to as Web3 these days, just got a massive boost from COVID.
So okay, so I wanna go back to you fast forwarded through the 5 years, which I think there's some interesting moments there. But I wanna, before that, give us kind of like the user story version of what StreamElements is. Like, okay, I am a gamer, and this gives me a bunch of tools to be able to interact with my audience. I'm a gamer that has audience. Like, what exactly does the tool give
very,
you?
very, very simply put, yes. If you are a gaming video content creator, one of those crazy guys that plays video games for a living, and you go live, you essentially need to manage an entire broadcast by yourself, or maybe with a little bit of help from your chat admins, while you are playing a game in the highest levels, which is a pretty daunting task from a mental bandwidth perspective. And so StreamElements platform is like the control room of a TV studio, but as a web service.
Wow.
You connect to it, you can create a whole bunch of overlays and graphics for your broadcasts. Some of these can be triggered by the audience through donations and all sorts of interactions that we enable. Some of these are triggered by your admins or by yourself. You can build a merchandising store and sell your branded merchandising to your audience. And what we, essentially is the biggest opportunity for us is to connect those creators, which essentially run a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel that has more viewership than some of the broadcast companies in Israel. We can connect them with brands for the sake of sponsorship. So sponsorship, merch, and audience engagement. You get this all in one beautiful Swiss Army knife for live video content creators. That is StreamElements.
My mom, but my mom would ask, who the hell is watching and nobody plays boring video game?
So I would ask your mom if she ever sat and enjoyed watching a cooking channel. And if the answer is yes, which I assume it is, then it's the exact same thing, but video games instead of cooking. It's a fun activity. The personalities that are playing and streaming and engaging with their audience are a wonderful combination of great players of games, which is always fun to watch. If you like a game, if you like basketball, if you like baseball, seeing the top players play the game is entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Second, they are entertaining in their own right. They're not just gamers, they're fun people. So you're hanging out with fun people. So it's a combination of great athletes, cyber athletes, entertainers, and community leaders. Imagine like a Hollywood celebrity, a Michael Jordan, and a rabbi bundled into one person. Would you watch that person? And the answer is millions and millions and millions actually do.
It's like the biggest, like the numbers are insane, right? In this
Insane.
industry.
Insane, man. You mentioned Mr. Beast earlier, who of course does not do as much gaming. He does this sort of Dudu Topaz kind of, social games content now.
Yeah.
But he started in gaming, like most of them. PewDiePie, of course, started in gaming. And you got people who are really the top echelon of video game players, professional players in the world today, guys like Shroud and, of course, Ninja in Fortnite. These individuals, for their live streams, have more viewership than TV stations in America, TV stations in Israel even.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the magnitude of this business, and it's growing by almost 30% year over year for the past 7 years. So just imagine, yeah.
I imagine that these people, I mean, I don't know, you tell me, but I imagine these people already, because they're so huge, they have some kind of team behind them, or are they still one person show?
They all get help. So once you go above a certain level, it's virtually impossible to manage your entire broadcast production, business activities, and do the broadcast itself, which sometimes runs for 7, 8, maybe 12 hours a day. So these are very hardworking people. They do have teams when they get beyond a certain size. Many of them have agencies. Many of them are, if they're professional gamers, they're part of esports teams. So yes, of course. And I can tell you that the major Hollywood talent agencies, all of them have now an esports or gamer category where they sign up that talent. And some of them actually go as bold as building their own agencies. Very famous Twitch streamer called Pokimane, who's both entertaining and incredibly successful, started her own talent agency, and now she's signing creators, and she has an entire team managing that agency for her. Mm-hmm. This is big business. This is like the future of media.
It's amazing. So assuming that those guys already have like teams around them, and are they still potential customers of StreamElements?
Absolutely, because none of these operations, none of these teams or agencies are a tech company that actually builds products for them. So they need software services, and they need a platform for everything that they do. I mean, can
you give us an example for features that they would use in StreamElements?
So I'll give you an example of one of our most popular features. Almost every creator that gets to a certain size of audience is opening the channel for donations or tips. Okay, and this is essentially a flow that goes like this. You watch a creator and you like him, and you scroll down the page to their donation / tipping link. You click that link, you go to a StreamElements page, and you choose to donate $5, $10, $20, whatever the number is, and you add a personal message, and then you click on Pay Now, and you pay through PayPal or credit card, and you go back to the broadcast, and after about 20, 30 seconds, an alert, like a graphic alert, is going to pop up on the screen that says, or just donated $10, and your personal message, sometimes just presented on screen, but sometimes also voiced in a text-to-speech mechanism. Wow. And then the creator would go something like, hey, Noor, thank you so much for watching the stream and supporting me with $10. That's really great of you. And you would not believe how much money this little mechanism provides creators every year. I will just say that it is well above $100 million a year. And we don't take a cut from that, by the way. This is not revenue for StreamElements. This is direct revenue to the creators.
Your revenue stream is mainly through the gamers themselves and subscriptions? And
no, gamers don't pay for StreamElements. Our two main revenue sources are from brand activations, the connection of creators with brand sponsorships, and from the merchandising and commerce portion.
That's a really cool feature, because it gives you that immediate feedback that, like when you were telling us about it, I'm like, why would anybody ever donate? And then boom, right? The second you talk about the fact that it gets read out to the gamer and that he calls out the person.
You guys are much younger than I am, but when I was young, in Israel, there was a TV show called Zeuze. And in every show, somebody would be they would bring him up on they would bring him to the air live to talk to them through a phone call. And if you were a kid in elementary school when I was in that age, and you got to be on TV, if you got to call TV, you would be a hero for a month. If you got to play Hugo, which was like a TV electronic game show, and you got to play on Hugo, you would be a hero for a month, regardless of the outcome. So this only provides millions and millions of opportunities to connect with your favorite creator while they are live, while everybody's watching every single day. And it makes total sense. We all vibe on that sentiment of connecting to our favorite celebrities.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very cool. But it wasn't your first startup, StreamElements, right? You had failures before, and you
I had failures in StreamElements as well. Right. No journey is without failures. So StreamElements is by far the most successful thing that I've ever built. And so is everyone else who is involved in it. My co-founder, Or Gil, our current CEO, Reem, of course. Our previous startup, mine and Reem, was a mobile classifieds app, like a Yad Shtayim, called Happy Sale, which we did for 3.5 years, and was a big failure. I mean, essentially, we scrapped the whole thing. It ended up with close to zero. So yes.
So how do you kind of rise up out of the ashes like a phoenix? Like how do you not just like, I mean, does it's got to take a toll, right?
It does, but so
like, were you broken down at the end of that? Were you like, I'm not doing this again? Did you have doubts?
Yeah, I never thought to myself, I'm not doing that again. That's I'm really that vain to think to myself, there is no way I'm not doing that again. I think so. For me, entrepreneurship really started more than 15 years ago. And when I was about, I'm 48 now, going on 49. And when I was about 33 or 34, it occurred to me that throughout the first 10 years of my career, I worked for other companies. I did amazing work there that brought tremendous value and enjoyed very little of it. And so the conclusion for me was to work in places where I either own a significant portion of the company or am the founder and CEO of. And that decision started when I was 32, 33, maybe even 34, right about when my first son was born, when my only son was born, first child was born. And from that point on, and for a good decade, I've known nothing but mediocre success to failure. And it doesn't really, I mean, if you're aware that this journey takes a long time, you see the learnings in failure, and you see the personal growth in failure, and you process it and you reflect upon it, and you get much better for the next time. You get much less fearful for the next time, which makes you, a better entrepreneur and a better business person. So the short answer is no, it never occurred to me to not do it again. But there are a lot of other learnings. Who am I going to do this with? How do I identify the business category that I'm going to go after? Should it be an uphill battle, or should it be relatively easy? There's a lot of other learnings, but quitting is dumb. It's like, if you decide that you want to be a professional, I don't know, tennis player. Yeah. And you fail and lose and get kicked out shamefully from your first 4 tournaments, then the conclusion needs to be, I'm never doing that again. No, of course not. This is, I mean, you wanted to be a professional chess player, so you have to go for the next tournament. You have to get better. You have to learn and see that you are improving. As long as you see improvement in the long term, as long as you say, okay, I failed this time, but I failed much better than the previous time, then you're good. Then you should keep going forward.
And what about the thing, we have some friends, Itai and Effie, who always laugh about the notion that Israel is unique, being like the whole idea of startup nation is a bit far-fetched. And yet you, like the kid from Haifa, came up with this idea that there was no reason that like the industry is American. So one would expect that such an idea to give a solution to such an American problem would rise in America, and yet it rose in Israel. So the question is, how come we produce so many startups, and how come is the hype real? Is what I'm asking.
First of all, statistically, the answer is absolutely yes. Because when you see the startups per person or per million people in this country compared to other countries, the answer is absolutely yes. I don't think anybody can argue with that. The question of why has been contemplated on and researched by many people, and I have my own personal thesis about it, but it doesn't mean that it's true. It's just my own personal thesis. And that is that Israel is in a very unique situation of having both a culture of scholarship. The Jewish culture is very much instilled in scholarly, in learning, in exploring, in developing new ideas.
People of the book.
Yes. I think it's something that is very, very Jewish in our roots, and I think you combine this with the fact that Israel is a country that's surrounded by other countries that for many years refused to do any sort of trade with it because there was the Arab boycott, and so export to European and American countries was really the only way for Israel to survive economically. I think the combination of these two lead to a situation where the best and the brightest of the country are constantly thinking about what can we sell to countries abroad.
The Goyim.
And to the Goyim. And I think that
you're selling Luftgeschäft to the Goyim.
We sell better to Jewish people in other countries, just to be honest, but it doesn't matter. It's still other countries, And I think that the result of that is that there were some decisions that were made very early on in the history of Israel that were really critical to us being open and knowledgeable of these cultures. For example, when we were growing up, all TV was in its original language with subtitles. It was not dubbed. So me, somebody growing up in the 70s and 80s in Israel, no cable TV, no download pirate content from other countries. All the TV that we saw were in its original language. We saw Cosby, we saw the Muppets, we saw all these shows, The Simpsons, and we had to learn English to understand the nuance. So we sort of like became very, like almost an American state overseas. Does that make sense? We identify ourselves culturally a lot with America. I think the result of that was also that we, at least nerdy boys like myself, developed a really strong affinity to the gaming industry, and I built a website called V Games many years ago. It started in 1999, and I'm very proud in the fact that it's still going. The idea of taking cultures from other places and bringing it to Israel. It's a very Zionist movement. You know, starting European theaters in Israel in Hebrew, starting European academies in Israel in Hebrew. This is a very Zionist thing. And we were always indoctrinated to do that kind of shit. And I think from that perspective, StreamElements is a very, very Zionist company, or at least that's how I think about it. It's a very Zionist thing to do. And I'm very proud of it. I don't think it's a fluke. I see the patterns in history, at least from my personal childhood and the way I was brought up, that led to us being able to do stuff like that. And we're not unique. Taboola is doing the same. Outbrain is doing the same. Wix is doing the same. WeWork is doing the same, with a dark side to it. But I think there are a lot of companies that are innovating in the media space out of Israel and are embraced globally.
I hate to get political, but I have to, because when you say Zionist and then you talk about, you know, the fact that you guys are headquartered in Austin and it's a very liberal area.
We're not headquartered in Austin.
Sorry, not
the headquarters is in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
I'm in Austin.
You're in Austin.
And fled from California.
But were you guys based in Austin before you went fully remote?
No. We just have people here.
Okay.
We have people everywhere. We have people in like probably 8 or 9 states, maybe even more, 12 states in the US.
Generally, the startup scene, I think, in the United States, the high-tech scene is a little bit more liberal leaning, is a little bit more left wing. And there's sometimes a sense of anti-Zionism or anti-Israel sentiment within that environment, that atmosphere. I get that sense, at least. I'm not sure if it's based in reality, but you don't think in Google or in Amazon?
No, absolutely not. I will tell you what there is, or at least how I experience it. The startup industry and the high tech sector of industry is trying very, very hard to be a meritocracy. We want to judge people by their skills and impact, and both their business success and product success, and the way they help us shape the world. And the vision that Silicon Valley has for the world is without boundaries. It does not recognize race or gender. It really wants to be a human universal unity, so to speak. I think from that perspective, any group that identifies itself with specific races or ethnicities is bound to get an immediate, cringe response. Like, really? And in the eyes of the world, Israel has not resolved the Palestinian problem. I have not met yet an American that does not recognize the fact that Israel is dealing with a really, really difficult situation when it comes to the Palestinian conflict. I've not met an American who told me otherwise. And definitely the Republican side of America fully supports the use of force and defense and everything. And I heard a lot of sentences like, can you imagine what would happen if this happened in the United States, like missiles flying on Tel Aviv or anything like that? What would the American army do? I do think, however, that with the civilian Palestinian population, there's a lot of stuff going on that Israel does not deal with very well, that emits unflattering pictures and images to the world that the world does not care to see out of Israel. So I think that is the extent of the Israeli animosity. BDS is a marginal movement in America. It's marginal. It might be noisy, but it's marginal. It does not reflect any consensus regarding the relationships between the U.S. and Israel. I think personally.
It's interesting. Okay, but I want to take us back to StreamElements and hear a bit about like the first steps to realizing that this thing was actually going to be successful. Like, when did you have some inkling of an idea that, I mean, of course you had the idea and you had the conviction that this was a problem that needed solving and there was a real need here. But like, when did you first realize that this was going to be a business success?
The business success portion happened in the first quarter after COVID started. So just to give you the timeline of the company, 2016, me and Or started raising money for the company, trying to raise money for the company. Nobody understood what the hell we're talking about. What is this weird creator gaming platform that you're building? And I don't even know who needs this shit. And we got a lot of cold shoulders from investors. And eventually we got to a point where I felt that if we're not going to make a significant change in the way we strategize and you know, go and talk to investors, there's probably not going to be a company. And so I went to my good friend Gil Hirsch, who was he just got back to Israel. He built face.com, sold it to Facebook, was product manager at Facebook for several years. And I asked him if he wants to be the chairman of the company and help us raise the money, because I felt that maybe with his credentials, investors are going to be more inclined to put money on us two schmucks with that weird product that nobody understands. And it worked like a charm. From the moment Gil joined and started working with me on our pitch and started talking to investors, to the moment that we had our seed round, it took less than 2 weeks. It was really just like a miraculous change.
And how much was the seed round?
Eventually it got to 3.5 million.
Wow.
So sometimes it's not about the idea, it's not about the pitch, it's not about the business model. Sometimes you just need the right person in the team.
Well, Gil did help us also refine our pitch and brought a lot of seasoned entrepreneur perspective into the whole thing. So it's not just, you know, his stamp or his face in a deck. It went a little bit deeper than this. But I will say this: if things are not working, change shit up.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah. Don't waste time thinking that this wall will break if you just butt your head into it several more times. No. Change shit up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you raised the seed.
We raised our seed round. About 3 months after we raised our seed round, the number of creators that were using the platform started to grow exponentially. And there was I don't want to go into the entire details, but something happened in the ecosystem that brought us to the attention of some top streamers. And from that point on, instead of growing, you know, by the hundreds of creators every month, which was the situation when we just raised our seed round, we did like 10,000 creators join the platform in a single month. And then by the end of the year, it was already 25,000 creators.
Like Omicron.
Yeah. And that was the first sense that we got of what is usually referred to in the startup industry as a product market fit.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a business yet. We didn't have revenue. We saw money going through the platform because of the donation mechanism and other revenue generating systems, but we didn't touch that money. This was going directly to creators. And in 2019, we started experimenting with these creators, connecting them with advertisers, and really monetizing the media with sponsorships. And when COVID started, we decided to double down all our efforts on growing revenue from sponsorships. And it was a game changer for the company, both in terms of the revenue we generated that year Just a total game changer. So this became a rocket ship in two segments. There's one, there was the product market fit rocket explosion that happened in June, July 2017. And then there was the revenue explosion that happened in March 20.
So if I understand the sponsorship model, it's you guys hook them up. You have a platform for hooking them up with a sponsor. And then just like in podcasts, basically the gamer will talk about the chair that he's sitting on and where you can buy it, how comfortable it is.
With one major difference. You remember the alerts that I mentioned earlier? When you donate money, an alert would pop up on the screen.
Yeah.
So in the case of our platform, we harness a similar mechanism for sponsorship. So you would go live and you say, I'm sponsored today by a product or service, and you can buy this product right now by clicking on the link below. And if you buy it, then an alert is going to pop up on the screen and I'll be able to thank you live. And so people go down to the link and they click on it and they go buy the product, and an alert would pop up on screen that says, Eitan just bought a gamer's chair, or subscribe to a digital music service, whatever. And you would say, hey guys, thank you so much for subscribing to this awesome product and supporting the stream while doing so.
Nice.
And that's incredibly powerful. Incredibly. It's like the impact that this kind of media and this kind of experience has is unparalleled to anything we've seen, in terms of just the connection between the community and the creator.
I actually, I don't know if Doron will allow me to tell the story, Doron, but I actually worked a bit with StreamElements.
I was curious if you're going to bring it up, because I don't know how proud you are of your involvement in that situation.
Very proud. Okay. Is it fine by you to tell it?
Of course, of course.
So I did 4 campaigns with Netanyahu. We had 4 elections, by the way, if someone doesn't know. In 2 years. So 2 years ago, it was I think it was the second round. Netanyahu and his team always like to innovate. And they like technology. And I knew the product by listening to Geekonomy and following Doron and Reem. So I told the guys in the campaign, hey, there's this cool product by Israelis. Maybe we can collaborate. Did I tell you about it? I don't
I remember. You used it.
And so we brought Doron and Reem to the historic Likud building, which sits in the middle of leftist Tel Aviv.
I was a Likud member back then. I was part of the Likudnikim Chadashim.
Right, who opposed
we didn't oppose Bibi. We just wanted him to behave like a liberal, democratic, person that represents the movement that he's part of, not make it his own backyard.
And I remember we were sitting and Doron was pitching the product, and one of the heads of the campaign was like, where can I buy shares? We were all laughing. I think he wishes he would have.
He would have made a smart decision to buy shares.
Yeah. So anyway, so we did very cool thing there, because the idea was we were doing lots of live videos, because Bibi would go every day to another city, and every day we did like 2-3 live events. So I was like, let's make it interactive. And in StreamElements, then they were big, but not as big as they are now, and they could still come up and help us and develop like particular tools that we asked from them. And they developed some very cool things. So there was the basic stuff, like when Bibi talked, you had the super text, and I could change it live with like quotes from what he's saying. And you had like cool integration with Facebook, where, on the live Facebook feed, people comment, so that if you watched the feed, you could see on the screen what people are commenting. And the funniest feature, which was based on something that you had on your platform, which was that when someone writes something in the chat, then an icon pops with an animation on the screen.
We need to explain the context here. Our platform was first and foremost developed for another platform called Twitch. And on Twitch, one of the main ways where audience responds to what's going on screen is by spamming emoji in chat. So they choose specific icons and they just spam it. If somebody says something funny, they would, they would spam a laughing emoji, etc. We decided to use, and it's a great mechanism of audience engagement. We decided to use that mechanism for the Likud live streams. And every time somebody wrote in chat Bibi Amelech,
Bibi the
an
king.
icon of the words Bibi Amelech with like a funny graphic would pop on screen and just fly like a firework on screen. Right. And we did a whole bunch of that shit, audience engagements, audience interactions. And if I remember correctly, no, it was only used in a single broadcast. I mean, we built the whole thing. Yeah. We launched it.
Maybe
it was
one
used
or
in a
two.
Single product.
This specific feature. Other feature we used for many live.
But I think one, I think what happened is, I don't think that it was too much, but I do think something happened in that specific campaign, in that specific election, at that point in time, like right after the first broadcast that was using this mechanism, a series of terrorist events happened in Israel.
Right. And
the live streams of the Likud party immediately took a different tone, less of a party and a lot more. Yeah. And I think these features are very inclined to create a sense of carnival. And I don't think that vibed well with the campaign.
It's still somewhere in the interwebs, this stream, but it was I liked it because in Bibi's live streams, people would write Bibi Amelech a lot. So what would happen was you had like a bunch of icons like popping, and it was fun. And I think we were a bit ahead of our time with that thing. I think
I can share with you that both Biden and Trump used systems like that for their live streams during the campaign. So in America, for live streams, for audience engagement during live streams, this is now a standard. The entire political system is aware of the platform, of its uses, and many of them use it for their live streams. Because if you want to connect with younger audiences, the people that are voting for the first time, in the media world in America, this is now known as the unreachable audience. It's the people that don't watch TV, they don't read newspapers, they don't listen to public radio, they only use streaming services and social media platforms, and they are literally unreachable. So if you want to reach unreachable audiences, that's when you come to companies like StreamElements that can provide you the service of reaching to them through creators across all social media.
I wonder, Doron, you said you're a Zionist company, and yet you're out there. I'm wondering if you'll ever come back. Life seems sweet.
I assume that I will. So let's be clear about several things. I live right now in Austin, but for all purposes, when it comes to StreamElements, I pay taxes in Israel. It's ridiculous because I actually pay more taxes in Israel right now than ever during the time that I lived in Israel. And beyond that, I have a lot of Israeli friends in other countries. And I think that people are not necessarily aware of how important it is that Israelis are everywhere. The fact that Israelis live in New York and in Silicon Valley, in Hollywood and in Austin, in European countries, and they are essentially ambassadors of goodwill and the project, which is the country of Israel, is overlooked by a lot of people. And I'm being asked a lot, when am I coming back to Israel? I don't have a direct answer to that. I'm not done yet. But I do feel that I'm bringing Israel a tremendous amount of good by doing what I'm doing, where I'm doing it. So, and also the world is becoming very, very small. People visit Israel all the time. I'm in constant communication, and all my friends are Israelis. I mean, I have very few American friends. So
That's
it's
a bit sad,
interesting.
though, no?
I'm
That
not
it's so
sad.
hard to. No, no, no. I'm not
No,
saying
no,
you're
no.
sad.
It's not that hard. It's just much easier to
There's a
be friends
gap.
with Israelis.
There's a gap, cultural gap. I guess.
I I I don't know if it's such a cultural gap. Yes, there are gaps in communication. There are differences in the way you befriend someone, and also we're grown-ups. I mean, very few people actually become really good friends with anybody in their 40s. But I do have American friends. I don't think it's about that. I think that Israelis are just um, they're more inclined to hook up with each other. It's very easy with Israelis. Yeah, we'll come, we'll do a cup of coffee, we'll meet, we'll do a cup of coffee, we'll meet for some brisket. It's like, yeah, it's easier.
I think it's also being Israeli in a foreign place. Meaning anything, anytime you are somewhere else. I found it here with Americans, actually. So it's the opposite, the flip side of it. Anytime you are in a strange place, you are the other, and you see someone else that is the same as you, it automatically actually strikes up a connection, and it makes it easier to connect with that person.
I think you're right. And in Silicon Valley, by the way, the sentiment or the feeling that you have is that everyone is the other. There are very few native born Silicon Valley Californians. The ones that own the houses that most of the techies live in are long gone. They sold that house. It was already sold like 2-3 times. There's a tremendous, a massive Asian population, people from India, people from all countries, really the top of the top, the brightest and the best. And everyone is the other. And the place is really great for that. By the way, Austin as well. Austin is enjoying a massive influx of people from all over America that just like the vibe of the city and want a good life here. And these are people from everywhere. They're people from all nationalities, all colors, all races, all genders and gender tendencies. I think the thing with Israelis is that we have more receptors towards each other. That's basically it. You meet an Israeli, okay, you already know like 50 mutual friends on Facebook, and whatever, you went to similar schools. It's there's more glue. In Avatar the movie, there's this thing where they hook up with the animal with those weird strings.
Yeah,
yeah, whatever the sensors, the Israelis have more of those come together than with any other culture or nation.
There's this, we all know about the American dream, or at least what it used to be. And there's also the Israeli dream, I think, today. The Israeli dream is the exit, to sell your company for loads of cash. And I'm wondering, like, if Mark Zuckerberg came to you tomorrow and offered like $4 or $5 billion, would you sell or consider?
Fuck yeah. But I'm only kidding. Here's the real answer. The short answer is fuck yeah. But the real answer is this. You're essentially referring to what startups call a liquidity event, a point where the hard work of you and your team and the entire company of building this thing and turning this company into a massive property that all the investors and all the employees will enjoy. So a liquidity event can come in multiple forms. And it could come from somebody else buying the company. It could come from an IPO, from a SPAC, from secondary sales, so investors coming in, investing money, but also buying equity from existing employees and founders. And the variety of liquidity events that a company can have is very large these days. It's bigger than ever. And so you don't necessarily need to sell your company to Mark Zuckerberg for you to make an exit, or just be safe that your investment or your hard work came to a certain amount of fruition. And investors know that these days, and they make sure that founders and employees enjoy the fruits of their labor long before the company goes IPO or SPAC or sold to Mark Zuckerberg.
So what kind of events are there? Like what are some of the types of liquidity events?
I just mentioned all of them, Eitan.
Ah, okay. I thought
are you having a stroke?
Not yet, but probably soon. But it's not. I thought IPO was a type of liquidity, right?
Yes,
and
it is.
Selling
it's
it.
IPO, it's SPAC, it's secondary sale during an investment round. It's it's just selling some of the founders and employees properties. You have now funds who only invest in companies in secondary sales. So they just swoop in companies, buy equity from people who have it right now, and they do nothing else. They don't invest additional money. They don't do another funding round. They just buy secondary stock.
Right, but there's the approach that says, like, I will never sell. I will build the next Facebook, the next Google.
So I think from our perspective at StreamElements, there's a market category, there's an opportunity to be captured, and we're not even scratching the surface of capturing it. So the appetite for growing the company more and more, definitely to the billions of dollars, is absolutely there with everyone in the team, and I know with our investors as well. But how far the journey will go and whether or not we'll be a public company or a private company for years to come, or owned by a different corporation that wants this business category and is interested in the opportunity, that's really an open question. We don't know yet.
Okay, Doron, it's very inspiring. Really, it's just
Indeed.
Inspiring. What can it's
I always tell my friends that the biggest inspiration that I can bring them is that a nerd dummy like me actually pulled it off, and so they could probably do it too. So this is the extent of inspiration.
Yeah. You think an Ethiopian guy from Dimona who just finished the military can become an entrepreneur? And the
short answer is absolutely. I think they will probably go through several cycles of entrepreneurship before hitting something as big. But I think, the answer is absolutely. I don't think there was ever a point in history where capitalism was such a dominant form of thinking. And by capitalism, I essentially mean that the ability of an individual to drive value to investors, gain capital, and build a meaningful business is better than ever in the history of mankind. That might not be necessarily true for specific pockets in the world, like Russia these days, but as a general, average across all of humanity, absolutely. Much better than ever before.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you so much, Doron. What can we plug before we go?
What can we plug? So
anyone can go to StreamElements and sign up.
Yes.
You said it's free.
StreamElements is free for everyone. And there's an incredible team of professionals on our Discord community that can help anyone start their channel, set up their channel, even your grandmother, which we would love to. By the way, there are some gamer grandparents.
Yeah.
There's one called Gamer Grandpa and one called Gamer Grandma, and like a whole bunch of these. And they actually enjoy quite a lot of success. They're good gamers. They're entertaining. They bring their life experience to the channel. It's a wonderful thing. So that's free. Geekonomy, the podcast that me and Ram started back in 2015, still running strong with, I don't know, probably like 3 to 4 episodes every week, which is kind of insane.
In Hebrew, though.
In Hebrew, though, yes. But you're welcome to subscribe to that. That's it. Enough plugs.
Very cool.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming, Doron.
Thank you for having me.
And Hopefully in
luck
5
with
years.
the,
After,
Yeah,
right? We don't talk about that yet on the show.
we don't talk about Bruno. Do
We
you talk
talk
about
about
Will
it.
Smith? Did you
No.
talk about Will
But
Smith?
your thing, no.
What do you mean we didn't?
No, we didn't.
We haven't mentioned it?
No.
We did.
You kept it. No, we didn't. You kept it a secret. You
Okay.
wanna?
Well, we go next recap.
Okay.
Next recap.
Yeah.
I'm having a baby. Not me.
Yay!
Not me
Look
personally.
at that. We're having a baby.
Yeah. We're having a
I
baby.
wish
I mean,
you
she's
all
going
the
through all the
best.
difficulty and the struggle, but we're having a baby.
Exactly. I wish you all the best of health and luck and mazel tov and b'shah tova and everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Doron, thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and see you in the next one.
See you next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.